When CEO Vincent Caldwell answered an emergency call, a terrified 7-year-old whispered, "Daddy, you left us at the river." Harper had been abandoned in a forest with her 3 two-year-old siblings and was desperately trying to save them with a bamboo raft. Vincent tracked the call and raced through the storm to rescue them, meeting their exhausted mother Madison, who'd been searching for hours. But as Vincent investigates why these children were abandoned, he uncovers a conspiracy that leads to the last person he ever expected, and a truth that will change his life forever. If you like this story, subscribe to the channel and type love in the comments. And don't forget to tell us where you're watching from. Great news awaits you. The rain hammered against the windshield of the black Mercedes as 42-year-old Vincent Caldwell navigated through downtown Seattle traffic. His silver-gray hair, impeccably styled despite the weather, caught the reflection of streetlights as he gripped the leather steering wheel with one hand, the other holding his phone to his ear. "The merger needs to close by Friday, Marcus." "I don't care what it takes," Vincent said, his deep voice carrying the authority of someone who'd built a tech empire from nothing. His steel blue eyes, framed by distinguished lines that spoke of both success and loneliness, remained fixed on the road ahead. The sharp-tailored navy suit he wore, complete with a crisp white shirt and burgundy tie, marked him as a man who lived in boardrooms and penthouse offices. At that exact moment, 7-year-old Harper clutched a plastic-wrapped phone with trembling hands. Her straight, wet blonde hair clung to her small face, framing hazel-green eyes that held far too much fear and determination for someone so young. The oversized pink hoodie she wore was soaked through, and her small yellow sandals were covered in mud. Behind her, secured on a makeshift bamboo raft, sat 3 two-year-old children, Milo in his yellow raincoat, Kara in red, and Finn in green, their round faces confused but trusting their big sister completely. The shallow river current pulled gently at Harper's legs as she stood knee-deep in the cold water, a rope tied around her own waist connected to the raft. Her small fingers shook as she unwrapped the final layer of plastic from her mother's old phone, the one she'd secretly taken that morning, sensing something wrong in her stepfather's eyes. The phone had exactly 4% battery, 1 call, maybe 2 if she was lucky. Harper's heart pounded as she scrolled through the contacts with wet fingers. The emergency contact glowed on the cracked screen. She didn't recognize the number, but her mother had always said, "If something happens, call this number." She pressed dial. Vincent was about to hang up his own call when his personal line, the number only 5 people in the world had, began ringing. He frowned, glancing at the unknown number flashing across his car's display screen. "Marcus, hold on." He interrupted his attorney mid-sentence. Something in his gut twisted. That line never rang unless it was critical. He answered, "This is Caldwell." What he heard next would shatter every wall he'd built around his heart over 4 decades of calculated, emotion-free living. "Daddy?" The small voice was shaking, barely audible over the sound of rain and rushing water. "Daddy, you left us at the river. We're lost in the rain. It's getting dark and the babies are cold. Please come get us." Vincent's entire body went rigid. Every muscle froze. His mind raced through possibilities, wrong number, prank call, confusion. But something in that little voice, something raw and desperate and heartbreakingly real, made his executive instincts kick into overdrive. "Sweetheart, I think you have the wrong number," he said gently, his voice automatically softening in a way it hadn't in years. "But I'm going to help you. Where are you? Are you safe?" "We're in the forest near the big road with all the stores," Harper said, trying to remember the landmarks she'd seen before they got lost. "There's a river and a bamboo bridge thing. I found a raft for my brothers and sister. They're 2 years old. They're triplets. I tied a rope so I can pull them." Vincent's heart hammered against his ribs. A 7-year-old pulling 3 two-year-olds on a raft through a forest river in a rainstorm. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, activating his car's emergency systems. "What's your name, brave girl?" "Harper. Harper Ann. My mommy's phone is dying. It's at 4%. I wrapped it in lots of plastic bags so it wouldn't get wet." "Harper, you are incredibly smart." Vincent was already pulling over, fingers flying across his phone's screen, activating tracking software his company had developed for emergency services. "I'm going to find you. I promise. Can you tell me anything else about where you are? I can hear cars. Not close, but not far. And there's a big tree that fell across the river. We're past that. The water is up to my knees now. The babies are scared, but I told them Big Sister has it under control. Vincent felt something crack open in his chest. Something he'd thought had died years ago when his own parents told him business mattered more than family, when every relationship had crumbled under the weight of his ambition. This child's courage, her protective instinct, her calm despite terror, it was extraordinary. Harper, you are doing an amazing job. The best big sister in the world. I need you to stay exactly where you are, okay? I'm tracking this call right now. Do not hang up unless the phone dies. Okay, she whispered. Then her voice breaking slightly. Are you really going to come? My daddy didn't answer. This was Mommy's emergency number. I'm coming, Harper. I promise you with everything I am, I'm coming right now. Vincent was already in motion, having pinpointed her location using the trace. A protected nature area about 12 miles from downtown, along Riverside Forest Park. He knew it well. His company had donated money to preserve it. He switched to his hands-free system, keeping Harper on one line while dialing 911 on another. Within 90 seconds, he had fire and rescue dispatched. But he wasn't waiting. His Mercedes tore through traffic, rain hammering down, as he broke every speed limit between him and those children. Harper, tell me about your brothers and sister. What are their names? Milo, Kara, and Finn. They were born on the same day 2 years ago. Mommy says they're miracles. They don't talk much yet, but they understand me. I always take care of them. Her voice wavered. We were supposed to be getting food donations at the church, but Ray said we should walk through the park first. Then it started raining and he just walked away. I saw him go the other way. He saw us going toward the river and he didn't stop us. Vincent's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Ray, the stepfather, who had deliberately abandoned 4 children in a forest during a rainstorm. Harper, you're safe now. I'm 8 minutes away. Can you see the babies? Are they okay? They're sitting on the raft. I put blankets under the plastic. They're looking at me. Kara is crying a little. Can you talk to them? Tell them help is coming? He heard Harper's voice shift, becoming softer, singing a gentle made-up song about sunshine and pancakes and going home soon. Through the phone, he could hear the babies' small voices responding, the fear in them gradually settling. 7 years old, he thought. She's 7 years old and she's saving 3 lives with nothing but bamboo, rope, and raw courage. His GPS indicated 4 minutes out. He'd already texted his head of security, who was mobilizing a team. But Vincent wouldn't wait, couldn't wait. Harper, I can hear sirens. Those are for you. They're coming to help. But I'll be there first. What color is your jacket? Pink, really bright pink. And the babies have yellow, red, and green raincoats. Perfect. I'm going to see you in 3 minutes. Stay strong, brave girl. The phone crackled. 2% battery. It's almost dead, Harper whispered, fear creeping back into her voice. Then you listen to me, Harper Ann. In 2 minutes, you're going to see a man in a blue suit running toward you through the rain. That's me, Vincent. I'm coming for you and those babies, and nothing in this world is going to stop me. Do you understand? Yes. The tiniest whisper of hope entered her voice. I promise you, Harper. I always keep my promises. The line went dead as the battery finally gave out. Vincent's car skidded into the muddy parking area at the Forest Preserve entrance. He didn't bother locking it, didn't care about the rain destroying his expensive suit. He grabbed the emergency flashlight from his trunk and ran. His polished leather shoes slipped on wet leaves and mud as he crashed through the underbrush, following the sound of the river. Branches tore at his jacket. Rain poured down his face. His breath came in sharp gasps. Not from exertion, but from an emotion he couldn't name, something fierce and protective and all-consuming. Then he saw them. Through the curtain of rain and twilight darkness illuminated by his flashlight beam was the most extraordinary sight he'd ever witnessed. A small blonde girl in a soaked pink hoodie, rope around her waist, standing in knee-deep water. Behind her, Three tiny figures huddled on a bamboo raft that looked like it had been lashed together by pure determination and love. "Harper!" he called out. The little girl's head whipped around, her hazel green eyes going wide. For a moment, they just stared at each other. This powerful CEO worth billions and this 7-year-old hero who'd saved her siblings with nothing but her courage. Then Harper's face crumpled, and she began to cry for the first time since the ordeal began. Vincent didn't think. He plunged into the cold river water, expensive shoes and all, wading toward her with his arms outstretched. When he reached her, he dropped to his knees in the water so he'd be at her level. "You did it, Harper. You saved them. You were so brave. But you can rest now. I've got you." She collapsed against him, small arms wrapping around his neck, her whole body shaking with exhausted sobs. Vincent held her with one arm while reaching for the rope with his other hand, pulling the raft closer. The three babies stared at him with huge eyes, too young to fully understand but old enough to sense safety had arrived. Behind him he heard shouts, the rescue team arriving. But he didn't turn around. He just held this trembling child and whispered the words his own father had never said to him. "You're safe now. I've got you. You're going to be okay. All of you." As emergency personnel rushed toward them with blankets and medical bags, Vincent Caldwell, billionaire CEO, ruthless businessman, man who'd built walls around his heart 30 years ago, felt something fundamental shift inside him. He didn't know yet that this was just the beginning. Didn't know about the mother frantically searching somewhere in the rain-soaked city. Didn't know about the dark secrets that would soon surface or the impossible truth that would connect his life to theirs in ways he couldn't imagine. All he knew was that this child's courage had touched something in him he'd thought was dead, and he would move heaven and earth to keep them safe. Vincent carried Harper out of the water, while two paramedics carefully lifted the raft carrying the triplets. The rain had lessened to a steady drizzle, but the temperature was dropping fast. His security team had arrived with the rescue workers, creating a protected perimeter around the scene. "Sir, we need to get these children to the hospital immediately," the lead paramedic, a woman in her 50s named Paula, said urgently. "Possible hypothermia, and the little ones need to be checked for respiratory issues." "Take my vehicle," Vincent commanded his head of security, Thomas, a former Marine with 20 years of protective service. "Clear the way to Seattle General. I'm riding with them in the ambulance." "Mr. Caldwell, you should let us handle," Thomas began, but stopped when he saw his boss's expression. In 2 decades of working together, he'd never seen Vincent look like this. There was something fierce and protective in those steel blue eyes that brooked no argument. Harper refused to let go of Vincent's hand as they loaded her onto the ambulance stretcher. Her small fingers gripped his with surprising strength, those hazel green eyes watching his face as if terrified he might disappear. "I'm not leaving," he assured her quietly, climbing into the ambulance beside her. "I'm staying right here." The 3 babies were being checked by another paramedic, all conscious, scared, but physically responsive. Milo clutched a soaked stuffed rabbit. Kara's tiny hand held on to Finn's, and Finn kept reaching toward Harper, making distressed sounds. "Let me." Harper tried to sit up, her protective instincts still in overdrive despite her exhaustion. "No, sweetheart, you need to stay still," Paula said gently, placing an oxygen mask near Harper's face. "But I promise your brother can see you." She adjusted the stretcher so Finn had a clear view of his big sister. As the ambulance sped toward the hospital, sirens wailing, Vincent watched Harper fight to stay awake. Her eyelids kept drooping, then snapping open in panic. "Harper, it's okay to sleep," he told her softly. "I'll watch over them. I give you my word." "But I always," she mumbled, her words slurring with exhaustion. "I'm the big sister. I have to. You did your job, you saved them. Now it's my turn to help. Trust me." Something in his voice must have reached her because she finally let her eyes close, her small hand still wrapped around his much larger one. Vincent looked down at their joined hands. His scarred from years of climbing the corporate ladder, closing deals, building an empire while sacrificing everything personal. Hers so small and delicate but marked with scrapes and cuts from the rope, from pulling her siblings to safety through a river in a storm. He'd never felt more humbled in his life. The emergency room at Seattle General erupted into controlled chaos when they arrived. Dr. Sarah Brennan, head of pediatric emergency medicine and someone who'd treated high-profile cases before, took one look at the 4 wet, cold children and the soaking wet billionaire who refused to leave their side and immediately grasped the situation's gravity. "Get me 4 trauma bays, heated blankets, and I want full workups on all of them," she commanded. "And someone get Mr. Caldwell some dry clothes before he catches pneumonia himself." "I'm fine," Vincent said tersely, still holding Harper's hand as they wheeled her stretcher down the corridor. "Just take care of them." "Doctor." Brennan gave him a knowing look but didn't argue. She'd seen this before, the moment someone went from stranger to protector in the blink of an eye. It just usually wasn't billionaire CEOs doing it. As they began treating Harper, checking her temperature and vital signs, a nurse gently tried to unwrap Harper's fingers from Vincent's hand. The little girl immediately whimpered and tried to pull away from the medical staff, panic flooding back into her face. "Wait," Vincent said. He leaned down close to Harper's ear. "I'm going to step back 3 feet so they can help you, but I'm not leaving this room. I'll be right here where you can see me, I promise. Can you be brave a little longer?" Harper's eyes, fighting to focus through exhaustion, found his face. After a long moment, she nodded and let go of his hand. Vincent moved to the side but stayed visible, his presence a steady anchor in the chaos. He watched as they worked efficiently, removing her wet clothes, wrapping her in heated blankets, checking for injuries. His fists clenched when he saw the bruises on her arms and legs, some fresh from today's ordeal, others older, in various stages of healing. "Dr. Brennan," he said quietly, nodding toward the bruises. The doctor's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. "I see them. We're documenting everything." In the adjacent bays, the triplets were being examined. Milo was crying for his stuffed rabbit, which a nurse had taken to dry. Kara kept calling out, "Harp! Harp!" her version of Harper's name. Finn had gone silent, which concerned the medical team more than crying. Harper heard their distress and tried to sit up again. "They need me. They need you to get better first," Vincent said firmly but kindly, moving back to her side. "And I promise you, the moment you're stable, we'll bring them to you. But right now you need to let these excellent doctors help you so you can be strong for them. You promise you won't leave them?" "I promise. Thomas," he called to his security chief, who'd followed them in. "Station yourself between all 4 bays. If anything happens, if any of them need anything, you come get me immediately." Thomas, a man who'd protected presidents and foreign dignitaries, nodded and took up position where he could see all 4 children. It took 2 hours of treatment before Dr. Brennan emerged from Harper's Bay with a cautiously optimistic expression. Vincent had finally accepted dry scrubs from a nurse, though he'd refused to leave the emergency department. "She's stable," Dr. Brennan reported. "Core temperature is coming up, no signs of serious hypothermia or respiratory distress. She's exhausted and has some minor scrapes and bruises, but remarkably she's going to be fine. The triplets are also stable. They fared better than Harper because she kept them out of the water. That little girl is extraordinary." "What about the older bruises?" Vincent asked quietly. Dr. Brennan's expression turned grim. "I've notified social services and the police. There's a pattern consistent with physical abuse, though not recent. The mother needs to be located and questioned, and there's apparently a stepfather who left them in a forest," Vincent finished, his voice like ice. "I'll handle that. Mr. Caldwell, this is a matter for the authorities. I'm not going to interfere with their investigation. But I am going to make sure someone is watching over these children until we know they're safe." He met her eyes steadily. "I have the resources to ensure their protection. I intend to use them." Before Dr. Brennan could respond, there was a commotion at the emergency room entrance. A woman's voice, desperate and frantic, echoed down the corridor. "My babies! Where are my babies? Someone called and said they're here. Harper, Milo, Kara, Finn, where are they?" Vincent turned toward the sound, and his breath caught in his throat. Through the emergency room doors stumbled a woman who looked like she'd been through her own personal hell. She was 39, but exhaustion made her seem both older and somehow fragile. Straight blonde hair, several shades lighter than Harper's, hung in wet tangles around her face. Her hazel green eyes, the same eyes as Harper's, were wild with desperation and streaked with tears. She wore a thin yellow jacket soaked through, jeans covered in mud as if she'd been crawling through the forest herself, and her hands were cut and bleeding. No makeup, no jewelry except a simple silver locket around her neck. Beautiful despite the disheveled state, but it was clear she'd been searching for hours. "Ma'am, you need to calm down." A security guard started, but she pushed past him with surprising strength. "Don't tell me to calm down. My children are missing and someone called from this hospital. Where are they?" "Mom!" Harper's weak voice called from behind the curtain. The woman's head whipped around and she ran toward the sound without hesitation, the security guard trying and failing to stop her. She burst through the curtain of Harper's bay, took one look at her daughter in the hospital bed and collapsed to her knees beside it, sobbing. "Baby, oh my baby, I thought I'd lost you. I searched everywhere, I called the police, I ran through that forest until my feet bled. I called Ray 100 times, but he wouldn't answer." Her words tumbled out in a rush of relief and anguish. Vincent stood frozen at the curtain's entrance, watching this raw display of maternal love and terror. Something about her, about the fierce devotion in her voice, the obvious love, the hours of desperate searching, struck him deeply. This wasn't a neglectful mother. This was a woman who'd been left in the dark while her children were abandoned. Harper wrapped her arms around her mother's neck, both of them crying. "Mommy, I was so scared. Ray left us at the river. He saw us walking the wrong way and he didn't come back. I had to use your emergency phone and a man came and—" The woman's head lifted sharply, her tear-streaked face suddenly registering Vincent's presence in the doorway. Their eyes met across the small space. For a moment, neither of them moved. Vincent felt something he'd never experienced. An immediate, profound recognition that had nothing to do with logic and everything to do with something deeper. Those hazel green eyes, so like Harper's but carrying years of pain and strength and determination, looked straight into him. "You saved them," she whispered, somehow knowing without being told. "You answered the emergency call. Your daughter saved them," Vincent corrected quietly. "I just showed up. Harper is the real hero." The woman stood slowly, still keeping one hand on Harper's shoulder, and extended her other hand toward him. Despite the cuts and dirt, despite the exhaustion, she stood with dignity. "I'm Madison Cole. These are my children." Her voice broke slightly. "Thank you for bringing them home." Vincent took her hand carefully, aware of the cuts on her palm. "Vincent Caldwell, and you don't need to thank me. I'm just glad I could help." A police officer appeared behind Vincent at that moment, followed by a woman in professional attire who identified herself as Sandra Kim from Child Protective Services. "Ms. Cole, I need to ask you some questions about your children's living situation and the whereabouts of Raymond Mitchell, who is listed as your domestic partner," the officer said, his tone careful but firm. Madison's face paled. "Ray is. I don't know where he is. He took the children out this morning to help distribute food donations from the church. He said it would be good for them to learn about helping others. When they didn't come back, I went looking for them. I've been searching for 5 hours." She swayed slightly, the exhaustion hitting her all at once. Vincent moved instinctively, catching her elbow to steady her. "Someone get her a chair and some water. She's suffering from exposure and exhaustion." "Ms. Cole, I'm going to need you to come with me for questioning," Sandra Kim said, though her voice had softened at seeing Madison's obvious distress. "Your children are safe and under medical observation. We need to conduct a full welfare assessment before—" "Before what?" Madison asked, fear sharp in her voice. "Are you taking them away from me?" "That depends on what we discover in our investigation," Sandra replied carefully. "Right now, we need to understand why 4 children under your care were abandoned in a forest during a rainstorm by your domestic partner." Vincent watched Madison's face crumble as the full weight of the situation hit her. She looked at Harper in the bed, then back at the social worker, and he could see her mind working frantically through terrible scenarios. "The other 3, Madison said urgently. "Milo, Kara, and Finn, where are they? Are they okay?" "They're stable and being monitored in the next rooms," Dr. Brennan assured her. "You can see them briefly before the interview." Madison nodded. but as she tried to move toward the other bays, her legs gave out. This time, Vincent caught her fully, supporting her weight. "You need medical attention," he said firmly. "You're no good to your children if you collapse." "I can't. I need to see them first." "Then I'll take you to them." Vincent looked at the social worker and police officer with an expression that clearly stated this wasn't negotiable. 5 minutes. Let her see her children are safe. Then we'll cooperate fully with whatever investigation you need to conduct. Something in his tone, the authority of a man accustomed to getting his way, combined with genuine concern, made them nod in agreement. Vincent half-carried Madison to each bay, letting her see and briefly touch each of the triplets. With each child she saw breathing and safe, more of the rigid terror left her body. But when they reached Finn's bay, she noticed the monitoring equipment was more extensive, and her fear spiked again. "Why does he have all those wires?" "Precautionary," Dr. Brennan assured her. "He wasn't responding verbally at first, which concerned us, but his vitals are strong. Some children just process trauma silently. We're keeping extra monitoring to be safe." Madison bent down, pressing her forehead against Finn's tiny one, whispering words of love and comfort. The 2-year-old's eyes opened, focusing on his mother's face, and he whispered his first word since arriving at the hospital. "Mama." She broke down completely then, and Vincent found himself again offering support, this time leading her to a chair in the hallway where she could sit before she fell. As she cried with relief and exhaustion, Vincent crouched down in front of her, making eye contact. "Ms. Cole." "Madison," she interrupted. "Please, after everything, it's Madison." "Madison," he said gently, "I need you to understand something. Whatever is about to happen with the investigation, whatever questions they ask you, I want you to know that I saw what you did tonight. I saw the evidence of hours searching in the forest. I saw the cuts on your hands and feet from running through the woods. I saw a mother who would do anything to find her children." She looked at him through tears, confused. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I also saw those old bruises on Harper's arms. And I heard her say that Ray deliberately left them in the forest. I'm telling you this because someone needs to understand that I will be watching this case very carefully. I have resources, Madison, and I intend to use them to make sure your children are protected." "Are you saying—" She could barely speak the words. "Are you saying they might take my babies from me?" "I'm saying that CPS has to investigate any potential abuse situation. But I'm also saying that I will personally ensure you have the best legal representation available. If you're innocent in this, and everything I've seen suggests you are, then I will help you prove it." "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do that for strangers?" Vincent thought about how to answer that. How could he explain that the sound of a scared little girl's voice on the phone had shattered something in him? That watching Harper save her siblings with nothing but courage and a rope had made him feel things he'd spent decades avoiding? That looking at Madison's face, seeing her maternal love and fierce determination, had awakened something he'd thought was dead? "Because your daughter called me Daddy on that emergency line," he said quietly. "Because for a moment I got to imagine what it would be like to have a child who needed me, to matter to someone that way. And because I have the power to help Madison, so I will." Fresh tears streamed down her face. "I can't pay you." "I'm not asking you to." Before either could say more, Sandra Kim approached with the police officer. "Ms. Cole, we need you to come with us now." Madison stood, squaring her shoulders despite her exhaustion. Vincent watched her summon dignity from somewhere deep inside, becoming every inch a mother fighting for her children. "Can I say goodbye to them first?" Sandra nodded, and Madison went to each bay again, kissing each child and promising she'd be back soon. When she reached Harper, she held her daughter close. "Baby, I need you to be brave a little longer. They're going to ask you some questions about Ray, about home, about everything. You tell them the truth, okay? All of it. And don't be scared. Mama's going to fix this." "I'm not scared anymore," Harper said, her voice small but steady. "Mr. Vincent said he'd protect us." Madison's eyes met Vincent's over Harper's head. Gratitude and something else. Something like hope, shining through the fear. As they led Madison away for questioning, Vincent stood in the hallway of Seattle General Hospital, watching 4 children sleep in their bays, protected by his security team and medical staff. His phone was buzzing constantly with messages from his company, from board members wondering where he was, from his assistant asking about tomorrow's crucial meetings. He ignored all of it. Instead, he pulled out his phone and dialed his personal attorney. "Richard, I need you to do something for me. Drop everything. There's a woman named Madison Cole about to be questioned by CPS and police regarding child welfare. I need you to represent her, starting now. Yes, I'm serious. Yes, I'll cover all costs. Just get to Seattle General immediately and make sure her rights are protected." After hanging up, he called Thomas. "I need a complete background check on Raymond Mitchell by morning. Everything. Financial, criminal, employment, relationships. I want to know why he left 4 children in a forest. And I want evidence that will hold up in court." Finally, he texted his assistant. "Clear my schedule for the next 3 days. Family emergency. I'm unreachable except for genuine crises." As he sent the message, he realized what he'd written. Family emergency. They weren't his family. He'd known them for less than 3 hours. But when he looked at Harper sleeping in the hospital bed, her small hand still curled around the blanket as if holding on to safety, he felt a fierce protective surge he'd never experienced. Something had changed tonight. Some fundamental shift in who he was and what he wanted. He just didn't know yet that the truth waiting to be discovered would be even more extraordinary than anything he could imagine. A truth that would prove some connections are deeper than choice. Some bonds are written in the very fabric of fate itself. 3 days after the rescue, Vincent stood in the conference room of his downtown Seattle headquarters, but his mind was miles away. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city stretched below, gray skies threatening more rain, the Space Needle piercing through low clouds. His reflection stared back at him. Impeccable charcoal suit, silver gray hair perfectly styled, every inch the powerful CEO. But something in his steel blue eyes had changed. "Mr. Caldwell, are you listening?" His CFO, Patricia Morrison, asked with barely concealed frustration. "The Techworth merger requires your signature by end of business today or we lose the competitive advantage." Vincent turned from the window, his expression unreadable. "Postpone it." The 6 executives around the mahogany conference table froze. Patricia's mouth actually dropped open. "Sir, we've been working on this deal for 8 months. Postponing now would—" "I said postpone it." His voice carried absolute authority. 2 weeks. If they won't wait, they can walk. Vincent, his longtime business partner Marcus Chen spoke carefully. "What's going on? You've missed 3 board meetings. You haven't returned calls from investors. Your assistant says you've been at Seattle General Hospital for 72 hours straight. Are you ill?" "No." Vincent gathered the contract files on the table, his movements deliberate. "But my priorities have shifted. This company will survive without my constant attention for a few weeks. Something more important requires my focus right now." "More important than a $4 billion merger?" Patricia asked incredulously. Vincent met her eyes steadily. "Yes, much more important." He walked out of the conference room, leaving stunned silence behind him. His assistant, Jennifer, jumped up from her desk as he passed. "Mr. Caldwell, you have— Cancel everything through next Friday. Redirect urgent matters to Marcus. Everything else can wait." He didn't break stride toward the elevator. "Sir, your mother called. She said it's important that you attend the foundation gala this weekend. She was quite insistent." Vincent's jaw tightened. Catherine Caldwell. The woman who'd raised him to believe emotions were weakness and family was secondary to empire building. The woman he'd spent 42 years trying to please, sacrificing every relationship, every personal connection, every chance at genuine happiness. "Tell my mother I'm unavailable." She specifically said, "Jennifer." He turned, and his assistant actually stepped back at the intensity in his expression. "For the first time in my life, I'm choosing to be unavailable. If my mother has an issue with that, she can call me directly. But the answer will still be no." 20 minutes later, Vincent walked through the pediatric ward at Seattle General, carrying bags from a toy store he'd discovered during his vigil. Nurses who'd initially been intimidated by his presence now greeted him warmly. He'd spent 3 nights sleeping in an uncomfortable chair in Harper's room, leaving only for brief business calls and to shower at his penthouse. Dr. Brennan intercepted him outside Harper's room. "Mr. Caldwell, I need to update you on the situation." His heart rate spiked. "Are the children okay?" "Physically, yes. All 4 are recovering beautifully. Harper can be discharged tomorrow." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "But CPS completed their investigation. They've placed the children in temporary foster care pending the outcome of the criminal investigation against Raymond Mitchell." Vincent's hands clenched around the shopping bags. "What about Madison?" "She's been cleared of any wrongdoing. The investigation found no evidence she knew about Raymond's intentions or was involved in the abandonment. In fact, they found evidence supporting her story. Security footage shows her frantically searching the area, phone records confirm she called police and Raymond repeatedly, and several witnesses saw her looking for the children." Dr. Brennan's expression softened. "But CPS policy requires temporary removal when there's been demonstrated danger in the home environment. Madison is devastated." "Where is she?" "In the family waiting room. She hasn't left the hospital since they made the decision. She's allowed supervised visits, but they're separating her from her children in 2 hours to transfer them to a foster home." Vincent handed the shopping bags to Dr. Brennan. "Give these to the children. Tell Harper I'll be right back." He found Madison in the small waiting room, curled in a chair by the window, staring at nothing. She looked even more exhausted than the night of the rescue, if that was possible. Dark circles shadowed her hazel green eyes, and she'd pulled her blonde hair into a messy ponytail. She wore donated clothes from the hospital, simple jeans and a gray sweater that hung too loosely on her thin frame. She didn't notice him at first, lost in whatever nightmare played behind her eyes. Madison. She looked up, and the raw pain in her face almost made him step back. "Vincent." Her voice was hoarse from crying. "They're taking my babies. In 2 hours, they're taking them to strangers." He sat down in the chair beside her and without thinking took her hand. It was cold, trembling. "I know. I just heard." "I did everything right," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table. I kept them safe. I loved them with everything I had. But I let Ray into our lives, and now—" She couldn't finish. "This isn't your fault." "How can you say that? I chose him. I brought him into their home. I trusted him with my children." Her voice broke completely. "Harper has nightmares now. She wakes up screaming that she can't find the babies. Milo won't let go of that stuffed rabbit. Kara keeps asking why Mommy looks so sad. And Finn." She pressed her hand against her mouth, trying to hold back sobs. "Finn barely speaks at all now." Vincent felt something crack wider in his chest, that protective instinct that had emerged the moment Harper called him Daddy on that phone. But it was more than protectiveness now. Looking at Madison's anguish, seeing her love for her children and her self-blame for circumstances she couldn't have predicted, he felt a connection he'd never experienced. "Madison, look at me." She raised her tear-stained face to his. "You are an extraordinary mother. What happened was not your fault. Raymond Mitchell is solely responsible for his choices." Vincent spoke with the same certainty he used in boardrooms, but this time it was backed by genuine emotion. "And I am going to help you get your children back. I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking, I'm offering." He squeezed her hand gently. "I've already hired the best family law attorney in Washington State. Richard Lawson is filing a motion this afternoon to expedite the custody review process. My security team has gathered evidence against Raymond that the police somehow missed. Financial records showing he planned to leave the state, text messages to associates suggesting the abandonment was premeditated. Everything." Madison stared at him in disbelief. "Why would he plan to abandon my children? What could he possibly gain?" Vincent hesitated. His investigator had uncovered something disturbing, but he wasn't sure Madison was ready to hear it. "We're still investigating his motives. But Madison, there's something else you should know." "What?" Fear flickered across her face. "Raymond hasn't been found yet. He disappeared the day of the incident. My team is working with police to locate him, but he's evading capture. Fresh horror dawned in Madison's eyes. You think he might come back? Tried it. No. Vincent's voice was firm. I have security posted at the hospital and at the foster home where they're placing the children. Raymond won't get near them, I promise you that. I don't understand why you're doing all this. The legal fees alone must be. She shook her head. You don't even know us. Vincent was quiet for a moment, trying to articulate something he barely understood himself. When Harper called that emergency line, something in her voice reached me. This 7-year-old girl, terrified and exhausted, still managing to save her siblings with nothing but courage. It made me realize I've spent 42 years building an empire and calling it success. But I've never once felt the kind of purpose I felt running through that forest to reach her. He looked down at their joined hands. And then I met you. I watched you fight for your children despite your own exhaustion and pain. I saw real love, Madison. The kind of fierce, selfless love I never experienced growing up. The kind I never thought I'd have the privilege to witness. He met her eyes. So the reason I'm helping is because for the first time in my life, I have the chance to use my resources for something that actually matters. That's reason enough. Madison's tears fell faster, but they were different now. Not just grief, but overwhelming gratitude mixed with something she was afraid to name. I don't know how to thank you. Don't thank me yet, we haven't won anything. Vincent stood, pulling her gently to her feet. But we will. And right now you have 2 hours with your children before the transfer. Don't waste a minute of it sitting in here. Go be with them. She nodded, wiping her eyes. But before she could leave, Vincent stopped her with a gentle hand on her arm. Madison, one more thing. After the children are settled at the foster home, you need to take care of yourself. You're running on empty. When was the last time you ate a real meal or slept more than an hour? She gave a bitter laugh. Who could eat or sleep right now? Someone who needs to be strong for when her children come home. Because they are coming home, Madison, I will make sure of it. But they're going to need their mother healthy and whole. He pulled out his wallet and handed her a card. This is the address of a hotel near the foster home. I've reserved a suite for you. Clean clothes, food, a real bed. Use it. Vincent, I can't accept. Yes, you can. Consider it part of my investment in this fight. A general needs to be battle-ready. He gave her a small smile. The first real smile he'd offered anyone in years. Please, let me help. After a long moment, Madison took the card. Okay, but I'm paying you back. Somehow. When this is over and I have my babies back, I'm paying back every cent. We'll argue about that later. Right now, go see your children. Vincent watched her hurry down the corridor toward the pediatric wing, her steps lighter despite everything. Then he pulled out his phone and called Thomas. Status report. Sir, we've traced Raymond Mitchell to a motel outside Portland. He used cash, but security footage confirms his identity. Local police are moving to apprehend him now. Good. What about his financial records? That's where it gets interesting, Mr. Caldwell. 3 weeks before the abandonment, Raymond received a wire transfer for $50,000 from an offshore account. We're still tracing the origin, but the timing is suspicious. Vincent's jaw clenched. Someone had paid Raymond to abandon those children. But why? Keep digging. I want to know who sent that money and what they expected to get in return. There's something else, sir. Something you need to see in person. Can you come to the office? I'm not leaving the hospital until those children are safely in foster care and Madison is settled. Sir, this is about Madison Cole, about her background. You need to see this now. Something in Thomas's voice made Vincent's instincts sharpen. What did you find? I'd rather show you. It's complicated. An hour later, Vincent stood in his security office, staring at documents spread across Thomas's desk. His world tilted on its axis as he absorbed information that seemed impossible. Are you certain about this? His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly as he held a birth certificate. Triple verified. DNA records, birth certificates, hospital records, all of it matches. Thomas's normally impassive face showed concern. Sir, the implications. I understand the implications. Vincent sat down heavily, his mind racing. Does Madison know? There's no indication in her records that she's aware. The adoption was closed. All identifying information was sealed. Vincent looked at the photograph Thomas had uncovered. A picture from 39 years ago showing a young woman in a hospital bed, holding a newborn with blonde hair and hazel green eyes. The woman's face was tear-stained but determined. On the back of the photo, handwritten words: Madison Rose, born April 15th, 1986. I hope you have a beautiful life, baby girl. I'm sorry I couldn't give you one. And the signature, Catherine Elizabeth Caldwell, his mother. Madison was his sister. Vincent's entire reality reorganized itself around this impossible truth. The instant connection he'd felt, the fierce protectiveness. The way looking at her had awakened something he'd thought was dead. It wasn't romantic, it was recognition. Some deep biological recognition of family. Sir, what do you want to do with this information? Thomas asked carefully. Vincent stared at the documents, his brilliant strategic mind working through scenarios and consequences. If he told Madison now, while she was fighting for her children, it could devastate her. Learning that the mother who gave her up was Catherine Caldwell, one of Seattle's most prominent socialites, known for her ruthless philanthropy and cold demeanor. Learning that the man who'd been helping her was actually her brother. But keeping this secret felt wrong too. Does anyone else know? He asked. Just myself and the private investigator who found the records. I've sworn him to confidentiality. Vincent made a decision. We don't tell her yet. Not until her children are back and the situation is stable. She has enough to deal with right now. And your mother? My mother has kept this secret for 39 years. A few more weeks won't matter. Vincent's voice hardened. But when this is over, Catherine and I are going to have a conversation she's been avoiding for nearly 4 decades. His phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Brennan. Foster care transport is here. Madison is saying goodbye. You should come if you're nearby. Vincent gathered the documents, locked them in Thomas's safe, and headed back to the hospital. As he walked through the corridors, his mind spun with this new reality. Harper was his niece. Those 3 babies were his nephew and nieces. Madison, strong, fierce, loving Madison, was his sister. And he'd found them by pure chance because a terrified 7-year-old had dialed an emergency number without knowing whose it was. What were the odds? When Vincent reached the pediatric wing, he found Madison in Harper's room, holding all 4 children as tightly as she could. Harper's arms wrapped around her mother's neck. The triplets, barely understanding what was happening, sensed something was wrong and clung to Madison's clothes. 2 social workers stood respectfully near the door, giving them final moments together. Mommy will come see you every single day, Madison promised, her voice breaking. Every single day until you come home. You're going to stay with some nice people who will take good care of you, and then very soon we'll all be together again. Promise? Harper asked, her hazel green eyes, Catherine's eyes, Vincent realized with a start, searching her mother's face. I promise, baby. I promise with my whole heart. Mister. Vincent will help, Harper said with the certainty only children possess. He promised too. Madison's eyes found Vincent standing in the doorway. The gratitude and trust in her gaze nearly undid him. She had no idea they were family. No idea that protecting her and these children wasn't just the right thing to do, it was his biological imperative. That's right, Vincent said, entering the room and crouching down to Harper's level. I made you a promise in that forest, remember? I said I'd protect you. I'm keeping that promise. He looked at each child in turn. Harper with her fierce courage, Milo still clutching his stuffed rabbit, Kara with tears streaming down her round cheeks, Finn watching everything with those serious, quiet eyes. His family, blood of his blood, whether they knew it or not. You're all incredibly brave, he told them. And this separation is temporary. Your mother loves you more than anything in this world and she's fighting to bring you home. Can you be strong a little longer? Harper nodded solemnly. Then, to everyone's surprise, she reached out and hugged Vincent around the neck. Thank you for not leaving us in the forest. Vincent held her carefully, this brave little girl who'd saved 3 lives and inadvertently changed his. I'll never leave you, Harper. That's a promise. When the social workers finally had to take the children, Madison collapsed into a chair, sobbing as she watched them disappear down the corridor. Vincent sat beside her, letting her cry, offering silent support. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I can't watch them leave and not fall apart." "Then fall apart," Vincent said quietly. "I'll catch you." She turned to him, confusion and pain and something else in her eyes. "Why do I feel like I've known you forever? Like I can trust you completely when we just met?" Vincent's heart clenched. "Because you have known me forever," he thought. "We shared a womb, different years maybe, but the same blood, the same mother who couldn't keep either of us in the ways that mattered." But he couldn't say that, not yet. "Sometimes people just connect," he said instead. "Sometimes the universe puts the right people in each other's paths at exactly the right moment." Madison leaned her head against his shoulder, exhausted beyond words. Vincent put his arm around her, and they sat in the quiet hospital room, two siblings who didn't yet know they were family, bonded by tragedy and hope and a determination to make things right. Outside, rain began falling again on Seattle, washing the city clean. 5 days after the children were placed in foster care, Vincent's attorney Richard Lawson called with news that changed everything. "Raymond Mitchell is in custody," Richard reported. "Portland police picked him up this morning. But Vincent, you need to hear what he's saying. He's claiming he was hired to abandon those children. And he's willing to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence." Vincent stood in his penthouse overlooking Elliott Bay. Dawn light filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows, painting the water gold and silver. He'd barely slept, spending his nights reviewing case files and evidence, determined to bring Madison's children home. Hired by whom? He won't say until he has a deal in writing, but my sources in the prosecutor's office suggest it's someone with significant resources, someone who wanted those children out of Madison's care permanently. A cold dread settled in Vincent's stomach. "Set up a meeting. I want to talk to him directly." "Vincent, that's highly irregular." "I don't care. Make it happen." 2 hours later, Vincent sat across a metal table from Raymond Mitchell in a Seattle police interview room. The man was 43, average height, thinning brown hair, weak chin. There was nothing remarkable about him except the cold calculation in his pale blue eyes. "Mr. Caldwell," Raymond said with a smirk, "the billionaire who suddenly cares about white trash kids from the wrong side of town. How noble." Vincent's expression didn't change, but his voice dropped to a temperature that made the police detective in the corner straighten in his chair. "Those children are under my protection. You abandoned them in a forest during a rainstorm, left a 7-year-old to save 3 babies by herself, and traumatized 4 innocent lives. Noble doesn't factor into my feelings right now. Justice does." Raymond's smirk faltered. "I want immunity. You'll get what the prosecutor offers and nothing more. Now tell me who paid you." "Why should I?" "Because if you don't, I will use every resource at my disposal to ensure you face the maximum penalty for child endangerment, attempted murder, and any other charge we can make stick. Your life as you know it is over, Raymond. The only question is whether you spend it in a cell or in protective custody. Choose wisely." Raymond's bravado cracked. He glanced at his public defender, who nodded slightly. "It was a woman," Raymond admitted. "High society type. Never gave me her real name, but she had money and connections. She approached me 6 months ago, said she wanted Madison's kids removed from her care permanently. Offered me $50,000 up front and another $50,000 when the job was done." Vincent's blood ran cold. "What job specifically?" "Make it look like Madison was an unfit mother. Create situations where the kids got hurt or scared. Build a case for CPS to remove them. The forest thing was supposed to be the final straw. They'd take the kids, Madison would lose parental rights, and the kids would end up in the foster system where this woman could." He trailed off, uncomfortable. "Where she could what?" Vincent demanded. "Where she could adopt them quietly, that's what she said. She wanted the kids but not Madison attached to them." The detective leaned forward. "Can you describe this woman?" Raymond shrugged. "Late 50s maybe. Blonde but not natural. Wore expensive clothes. Designer stuff. Cold eyes. Real cold. She met me at fancy hotels, always paid cash. But she slipped once. Mentioned she was on the board of some children's charity in Seattle. Vincent felt the world tilt again. Only one person matched that description with access to both money and connections in Seattle's foster care system. A person who sat on the board of 3 major children's charities and had the influence to manipulate adoptions. His mother, Catherine Caldwell. But why would she want Madison's children? Unless she knew. Unless she'd known all along that Madison was her daughter, had been watching from afar and had decided she wanted access to her grandchildren without dealing with the daughter she'd given away. Vincent stood abruptly, his chair scraping against concrete. Get his full testimony on record, everything. I want dates, locations, phone records, all of it. Mr. Caldwell, where are you going? The detective asked. To end this. Vincent drove through Seattle with single-minded focus, his Mercedes navigating familiar streets toward Queen Anne Hill, where his mother's mansion overlooked the city like a fortress. He'd grown up in that house learning from Catherine that emotions were weakness, that family was secondary to reputation, that love was a liability. She'd taught him well, too well. The gates opened automatically, recognizing his car. He pulled into the circular driveway, past manicured gardens and marble fountains that screamed old money and cold perfection. Catherine Caldwell met him at the door, dressed in an immaculate cream pantsuit, her platinum blonde hair styled perfectly. At 58, she was still striking. Sharp cheekbones, ice blue eyes, a figure maintained by personal trainers and ruthless discipline. She looked at her son with the same critical assessment she'd given him his entire life. Vincent, how unexpected. I heard you've been neglecting your responsibilities for some charity case. Her voice was cultured, precise, and completely devoid of warmth. Vincent walked past her into the marble foyer, his jaw clenched. We need to talk, privately. Catherine raised one perfectly sculpted eyebrow. I have a foundation meeting in an hour. Cancel it. He turned to face her, and something in his expression made even Catherine pause. Unless you want to have this conversation in front of witnesses, you'll cancel it now. For the first time in his memory, his mother looked uncertain. She dismissed the household staff with a wave, then led him to her private study, a room of dark wood, leather chairs, and walls lined with photographs of Catherine with politicians, celebrities, and Seattle's elite. Notably absent, any family photos. Vincent closed the door and faced her. Madison Cole. Ring any bells? Catherine's face went carefully blank, a reaction that told him everything. Should it? Don't. His voice was sharp. Don't insult my intelligence. I know, Mother. I know you gave birth to a daughter 39 years ago and gave her up for adoption. I know that daughter is Madison Cole. And I know you've been watching her. Catherine's composure cracked slightly. She moved to the bar, poured herself a scotch with steady hands. How did you find out? Does it matter? What matters is that you've been orchestrating a plot to take her children. You hired Raymond Mitchell to make her look like an unfit mother so you could swoop in and adopt your grandchildren without dealing with the daughter you abandoned. Catherine took a long sip of her drink, then met his eyes. Abandoned is a strong word. I was 19 years old, unmarried, with a pregnancy that would have ruined my family's reputation. I made the best choice available. The best choice? Vincent's laugh was bitter. You gave away your daughter and spent 39 years pretending she didn't exist, and now you decide you want her children. Why, Mother? So you can do to them what you did to me and Madison? Teach them that love is transactional and family is a business arrangement? You know nothing about what I sacrificed. I know everything. Vincent's voice rose for the first time. I know you married my father for his company, not love. I know you raised me to be a perfect heir instead of a son. I know you've manipulated and controlled every aspect of your life and everyone in it. What I don't know is why you thought you had any right to those children. Catherine set down her glass with a sharp click. Because they're my blood, my grandchildren. And Madison is clearly unfit if she's living in poverty, working multiple jobs, and let that man anywhere near. Madison is the best mother I've ever witnessed, Vincent interrupted, his voice deadly quiet now. She loves those children with everything she has. She works herself to exhaustion to provide for them. She searched for hours in the rain when they went missing, cutting her hands and feet on rocks and branches. She is everything you never were. The words hung in the air like a verdict. Catherine's face went pale, then flushed with anger. How dare you? How dare I what? Tell you the truth? You want to know what's really tragic, Mother? You have a daughter who's extraordinary, kind, fierce, loving, everything good in this world. You have grandchildren who are bright and brave and deserve every chance at happiness. And instead of reaching out, instead of trying to be part of their lives honestly, you tried to steal them. You tried to destroy Madison's family so you could play the savior. I would have given them everything. The best schools, the best opportunities, a life Madison could never provide. They don't need your money. Vincent's shout echoed in the study. They need their mother. They need love, not manipulation. They need family, not corporate strategy. Catherine stared at her son as if seeing him for the first time. What has happened to you? A week ago, you were closing billion-dollar deals without a second thought. Now you're ranting about love and family like some sentimental fool. All because of some woman and her children. That woman is your daughter. Those children are your grandchildren, and they are my family. Vincent's voice was firm, final. You taught me my whole life that blood doesn't matter as much as success, but you were wrong. Blood is everything, family is everything. And I will not let you destroy theirs because you're too damaged to understand that. Vincent, I'm not finished. He pulled out his phone, pulling up the documented evidence Thomas had compiled. I have Raymond Mitchell's full testimony. I have financial records linking the payments to offshore accounts you control. I have enough evidence to bring criminal charges against you for conspiracy to commit kidnapping, child endangerment, and about a dozen other charges. Catherine's face went white. You wouldn't. Try me. Vincent's eyes were ice. You have two choices, Mother. Choice one. You go to the police right now, confess everything, and cooperate fully with their investigation. You'll face charges, but your cooperation might earn some leniency. More importantly, it will help Madison get her children back immediately. And choice two? I prosecute you myself. I use every resource I have to ensure you face the maximum penalty. Your reputation, your foundation work, your place in Seattle society, all of it destroyed. And you'll never have contact with Madison or those children ever. Catherine sank into her leather chair, looking suddenly every one of her 58 years. Why are you doing this? To punish me? No. Vincent's voice softened slightly. I'm doing this to save you from making the biggest mistake of your life. You still have a chance, Mother. A chance to meet your daughter honestly. A chance to know your grandchildren. A chance to be the person you should have been all along. Madison will never forgive me for what I've done. Maybe not, but you'll never know unless you try. And trying starts with taking responsibility for your actions. Catherine was silent for a long moment, staring at her hands. Hands that had signed million-dollar checks and cut ribbons at charity events, but had never held her daughter or comforted her grandchildren. If I confess, she finally said quietly, Madison gets her children back immediately. Yes. CPS will expedite the review when they learn the abandonment was a paid setup and you're no longer a threat. And will I? She couldn't finish the question. Will you get to meet them? That's Madison's choice, not mine. But I'll tell her the truth. All of it. That you're her mother, that I'm her brother, that this whole nightmare was because you made terrible choices but might be capable of making better ones going forward. Catherine stood, moving to the window that overlooked her perfect gardens. When she spoke again, her voice was different, smaller, more human than Vincent had ever heard it. I was 19, scared. My parents gave me an ultimatum, give up the baby or lose everything. I chose wrong. She turned back to face him. And I've been choosing wrong ever since, choosing reputation over love, control over connection. I thought I could correct my mistake by taking those children, giving them what I never gave Madison. But I would have just repeated the same damage, wouldn't I? Yes, Vincent said honestly. You would have. Catherine nodded slowly. Call your attorney. Tell him I'm ready to give my statement. And Vincent? She met her son's eyes. Thank you for being a better person than I taught you to be. 6 hours later, Vincent stood in the hallway of the foster home where Madison's children were staying, watching through a window as social workers told Madison she was getting her children back. Her face transformed, from exhausted despair to disbelieving hope to overwhelming joy in the space of seconds. She looked around frantically and found Vincent watching. Their eyes met through the glass and she ran to him, throwing her arms around him in a hug that nearly knocked him backward. "They said I can take them home today. Today. The charges are dropped. The investigation found the whole thing was a setup and I can take my babies home right now." She was crying and laughing simultaneously. "How did you do this?" Vincent held her carefully, his sister, though she still didn't know. "I had help. Good legal team. Some luck. But mostly, Madison, this is because you're an extraordinary mother who never gave up." "I want to meet them," she said, pulling back to look at him. "Your legal team, the investigators, everyone who helped. I need to thank them. There's actually someone specific who wants to meet you," Vincent said carefully. "Someone whose involvement in this case was complicated." Madison's joy dimmed slightly, confusion entering her eyes. "What do you mean?" Before Vincent could answer, Richard Lawson approached with a file. "Ms. Cole, there's something you need to know about how this case unfolded. It involves your adoption records and some information that came to light during the investigation." Vincent watched Madison's face as Richard explained about the sealed adoption records, about Catherine Caldwell being her biological mother, about Vincent being her brother. He watched understanding dawn, followed by shock, followed by a storm of emotions too complex to name. When Richard finished, Madison looked at Vincent with tears streaming down her face. "You knew? When did you know?" 5 days ago, Vincent admitted. "I wanted to tell you immediately, but you had enough to deal with." "You're my brother." She said it like she was testing the words, seeing if they felt real. "You're my brother and you found me by accident because Harper called your emergency number." "Yes. And our mother, Catherine Caldwell. She tried to take my children because she made terrible choices 39 years ago and has been making them ever since. But Madison, she's confessed everything. She's cooperating with the investigation. She's facing consequences. And she's asking, not demanding, asking, if she might someday have the chance to meet you." Madison walked to the window, looking at nothing, processing the impossible weight of information. Vincent stood quietly, giving her space. Finally, she spoke without turning around. "I used to imagine my birth mother. When I was a little girl in foster care, moving from home to home, I'd make up stories about why she gave me away. I imagined she was young and scared, but loved me so much she wanted me to have a better life." Her voice broke. "I never imagined she was a rich socialite who watched me from afar and only wanted my children when I'd done all the hard work of raising them. I know it's not the story you wanted." "No." Madison turned back to face him. "But you know what? Maybe it's the story I needed. Because if Catherine had kept me, raised me the way she raised you, all cold ambition and no love, I wouldn't have learned what real family means. My foster parents weren't perfect, but they taught me to love. And I love my children with everything I am. That's something Catherine never learned." She walked back to Vincent, looking up at him with those hazel green eyes so like his own. "You said you're my brother. Do you? Do you want to be? Or was helping us just obligation once you knew?" Vincent took her hands in his, something he'd never done with anyone. "Madison, when Harper called me that night before I knew any of this, I felt something I'd never felt before. Purpose, connection, family, and every moment since, getting to know you, seeing your strength and love and fierce protection of your children. You've shown me what family really means, so yes, I want to be your brother very much." Fresh tears spilled down Madison's face, but she was smiling. "I always wanted a brother. And I never knew I needed a sister until I found you." They stood in that hallway, two people who'd lived 39 and 42 years without knowing they shared blood, holding on to each other like lifelines. Behind them, a door opened and Harper's voice called out excitedly, "Mommy, they said we can go home." Madison and Vincent turned to see all 4 children rushing down the hallway, social workers smiling behind them. Harper reached them first, throwing her arms around both Madison and Vincent in a 3-way hug. The triplets crashed into them moments later, creating a chaotic, joyful pile of arms and legs and laughter. "Is Mr. Vincent coming home with us?" Harper asked hopefully. Madison looked at Vincent over Harper's head, a question in her eyes. "If it's okay with your mom," Vincent said carefully, "I'd like to be part of your lives. Not as a stranger who helped once, but as family, as your uncle." "Uncle Vincent," Kara repeated, testing the words. Milo hugged Vincent's leg. Finn, still quiet but watching everything, reached up his small arms wanting to be held. Vincent picked up Finn carefully. This nephew he hadn't known existed a week ago, and felt his heart expand in a way he'd thought impossible. Finn laid his head on Vincent's shoulder, finally feeling safe enough to rest.